The U.S. economy faces profound challenges from the ripple effects of current global conflicts and geopolitical tensions, such as the Russia-Ukraine war, the ongoing instability in Syria, and the growing tensions between China and Taiwan. Each of these crises creates a unique strain on the economy, compounded by their interconnected impacts on global markets. The Russia-Ukraine war, for instance, has upended global energy markets, forcing the U.S. to increase liquefied natural gas, LNG, exports to Europe to compensate for the region's reduced reliance on Russian energy. While this has bolstered American energy producers, it has also driven up domestic energy prices, exacerbating inflation across all sectors by increasing costs for transportation, manufacturing, and consumer goods. Additionally, the U.S. has poured billions into military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine, contributing to ballooning national debt while diverting resources from critical domestic priorities like infrastructure and education. Beyond energy, the disruption of Ukrainian grain exports and fertilizers, essential to global agriculture, has led to food price volatility, indirectly straining American consumers and businesses as global supply chains remain unstable. The prolonged conflict in Syria adds another layer of complexity, further destabilizing the Middle East, a region critical for energy supplies and global trade. While the U.S. is less reliant on Middle Eastern oil than in the past, instability in the region continues to exert upward pressure on global oil prices, indirectly affecting American energy costs. The U.S.'s ongoing military presence and financial commitments to humanitarian efforts in Syria not only drain fiscal resources but also deepen its involvement in a region with limited prospects for stability. The refugee crisis triggered by Syria's war has strained European allies, complicating U.S. trade and diplomatic relationships with these partners. This instability also serves as a breeding ground for extremist groups, requiring additional spending on counterterrorism efforts and heightening the global security risks that indirectly impact the U.S. economy. Perhaps the most alarming economic threat comes from the escalating tensions between China and Taiwan, as Taiwan is the world's leading producer of advanced semiconductors, a cornerstone of modern technology industries. Any conflict in this region would likely cause severe disruptions in the global semiconductor supply chain, crippling industries such as automotive, electronics, and defense. U.S. companies that rely heavily on Chinese manufacturing would face additional challenges if sanctions against China were enacted or if shipping routes in the South China Sea, a critical artery for global trade, were disrupted. Such a scenario could drastically increase production costs, delay goods delivery, and exacerbate already rising inflation, threatening to push the U.S. economy into deeper economic instability. The need to bolster Taiwan's defense capabilities has also led to increased military spending, further stretching the federal budget and creating fiscal trade-offs that undermine long-term economic growth. More broadly, these conflicts fuel widespread uncertainty in global financial markets, reducing investor confidence and slowing economic activity. Rising energy and commodity prices strain household budgets, reducing disposable income and weakening consumer spending, a key driver of the U.S. economy. The Federal Reserve faces additional challenges in balancing inflation control with economic stability, especially as geopolitical shocks push prices upward while simultaneously threatening growth. Beyond these direct impacts, the U.S.'s growing defense and humanitarian spending contribute to a rising national debt, eroding fiscal flexibility and increasing future borrowing costs. Prolonged involvement in these conflicts also limits the U.S.'s ability to invest in critical domestic areas like renewable energy, infrastructure, and education, which are vital for long-term economic competitiveness. Together, the cumulative effects of these global crises create a precarious economic environment where inflation, supply chain fragility, rising debt, and geopolitical risks converge to threaten the stability and resilience of the U.S. economy. If these global conflicts and geopolitical tensions persist or escalate, the U.S. is likely to face an increasingly precarious economic future marked by heightened inflation, slower growth, and deepening fiscal challenges. Energy prices could remain volatile, especially if instability in the Middle East intensifies or if sanctions on energy exports from regions like Russia continue to tighten global supply. This would strain American households further, reducing disposable income and dampening consumer spending, a key engine of the U.S. economy. An escalation in the Taiwan-China conflict would almost certainly lead to a semiconductor supply chain crisis, crippling key industries and driving up the cost of technology, vehicles, and defense equipment, while increasing the nation's reliance on expensive, domestically produced alternatives. Military spending would surge to unprecedented levels as the U.S. seeks to support allies and maintain its strategic presence in key regions, pushing the national debt to unsustainable levels and reducing fiscal space for critical domestic investments. The broader economic uncertainty could lead to significant turbulence in financial markets, with sharp declines in stock valuations, reduced foreign investment, and weaker business confidence. As global trade routes face potential disruptions, American exporters could find themselves at a disadvantage, losing access to key markets and exacerbating trade deficits. Persistent geopolitical instability might also encourage a shift toward regionalism in trade, with countries prioritizing security over globalization. While this could stimulate some domestic industries, it risks reducing overall economic efficiency and raising costs for consumers. The Federal Reserve, caught between battling inflation and addressing economic stagnation, might struggle to implement effective monetary policies, further complicating recovery efforts. In the long term, if the U.S. fails to adapt to these challenges by investing in energy independence, technological innovation, and robust trade strategies, it risks losing its competitive edge in the global economy, leaving the nation more vulnerable to external shocks and less capable of addressing domestic inequality and infrastructure needs. The cumulative effect of these challenges could reshape America's economic landscape, leading to a prolonged period of slower growth, reduced global influence, and increased financial insecurity for its citizens.